Hey, this is Mr. Coker, and what I have here is a circle. Exciting, I know. However, what I'm going to talk about today is finding three things. I'm going to put all of them in this video. I'm going to use examples from my class's assignment. So the first thing I'm going to show you to find is to find a diameter. Now, the first thing I want to point out is what a diameter is. A diameter is any line that travels from one end of the circle to the other end of the circle while passing the middle. Notice this dot here is the middle. It's the exact middle of the circle. It's the point where any line that I draw from this dot to the end of the circle or to the edge of the circle would be the same length. So this is the middle of the circle, the middle point of the circle. A diameter goes from one side to the other. Okay? So that could be this line could be a diameter. But what about this line? This line is half of a diameter. That is a radius. This is a radius. I'm not drawing a line, just know this line here is a radius. A radius is something that is the middle of the circle to the edge of the circle. If it goes all the way through the circle, from one side to the other, through the middle, is a diameter. This is probably common sense, but to find a diameter, so let's say we have a radius of 11. How do you find the diameter? You multiply by 2. If a radius goes from an end of the circle to the middle, and a diameter goes from the end of the circle to the other end of the circle, a diameter equals the radius times 2. Okay? Diameter equals radius times 2. And on the assignment I'm giving in my class, this is number 1. Okay? So, this is pretty simple, but there are 3 important vocabulary terms to know out of what I just wrote. One is radius. Radius is, well, first one is the middle point, the middle of a circle. I'm not even writing that down. The middle of a circle is just what it sounds like. It's exactly in the middle of the circle. Any line drawn from the middle of the circle to the edge of the circle is the same length no matter where it goes. Okay? For example, if I drew another radius, it would also be 11, 11, 11, and so on. They're all 11. That's the point. Then there's diameter. By the way, rewind a couple of seconds if you didn't get all that. The diameter is a line that goes through the circle. A radius goes halfway through the circle. Now, why is the radius important in diameter? Well, here's the main reason that radius is important. Let's say we have this, which is number 6 on today's assignment. And we need to find the circumference. You see this called the circumference. Okay, now what is a circumference? It's a guy named Cumference before he became a knight. No, that's not really what it is. Circumference is the distance all the way around the edge of the circle. Now what that means is, it's similar to a perimeter. If we have a square and we need to know the perimeter, let's say we have a square and we need to know the perimeter, we would add each side together, right? We would add every side together and that would give us the perimeter. The circumference is similar. It's the distance around the edge of the circle. Now to find this, we need a radius. This is our radius. And we need to multiply it by 2 and multiply it by pi. This is circumference. Now, the other thing about circumference, if radius times 2 times pi works, so does diameter times pi. Both of these are the formula for circumference. The diameter times pi, that's the distance from one end to the other. Also, that's good if we have the diameter. But here we don't have a diameter, we have a radius. This is a reason you need to know the difference between radius and diameter, because you need to know what formula to use. So radius times 2 times pi is what we need here. We have a radius. So we can do 5.3 times 2 times pi. And I know that's a funny looking problem. But you put this in the calculator. This goes in a calculator. And it will give you approximately, and this is an exact figure, 33.3. I rounded to 1 decimal place. But that's what it will give you. And it looks weird, you put a pi. On your calculator, you will have a pi button. Use it. 5.3, the radius, times 2 times pi. Pi is important. Without the pi button, we can't figure circumference. We also can't figure area of a circle, which we'll do in a moment. So, circumference. Write that down because we need to know how to do how to find a diameter. We also need to know how to find a circumference if we have a radius. Well, what if we don't have a radius? Pause this if you need to, because I'm going to erase it. Because I'm going to say, what if we don't have a radius? Let's look at another problem. That was number 6. But let's say we have this problem. Let's say we have this. Well, that's a diameter. Notice it goes from one side to the other. Through the middle, by the way. Now I'll tell you if it's through the middle, just so it's clear. But that's clearly a diameter. Well, what's the formula for diameter, for circumference when you have a diameter? C, circumference, equals diameter times pi. So we can just do 10 times pi. Just put 10 times pi in a calculator. You may get this. When I use the TI-36 calculator that I use, and I usually use in my classes if most of our students will use in class, it will give you 10 pi. Don't put 10 pi, namely if your directions tell you to round to 1 decimal place. Hit the change button on that calculator and it will give you this, 31.4. That's rounded. And it makes sense. What is pi? What's the, when we round pi to 2 decimal places, we get 3.14. What's 3.14 times 10? Well, it's 31.4. So it makes sense. But this is number 16 on today's work, okay? If you randomly stumble across this video, you're going to be like, what's the work? I don't see it. Well, first of all, if you randomly stumble across it, sorry, and thanks for watching this long. Secondly, you're like, what work? But if you're in my class, you know what I mean. Actually, if you're in one of my other classes, not geometry, you're like, yeah, I don't know that work. But you'll see it next year, if you have me, which you might not. Okay, last thing is area. Area, 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 area. Area of a circle. Let's do another one off of here. Let me make sure. Do an area one that I am. Let's do 21. There's our middle. There's our radius. 8.5. That's an 8. Let's make it look like an 8. Pretend that I'm fancy and write neatly. 8.5. That is an awful 5. Never mind. I can't pretend to write neatly. Okay. 8.5 it is. Now, how do you find the area of a circle? This one is different. If we're finding area, this is what we do. We need the radius, not diameter. We can't have the diameter. We need the radius squared times pi. Radius squared times pi. Now, the radius here is 8.5. We square that and multiply by pi. 8.5 squared times pi. It should look just like this. You could put pi times 8.5 squared. Don't multiply the 8. On circumference, you can multiply in any order. You could do radius times 2 times pi, pi times radius times 2, 2 times pi times radius, radius times pi times 2. It doesn't matter because of the they're all being multiplied. Order doesn't matter. Here it matters because order of operations includes exponents. Make sure you put 8.5 squared, do the second power, times pi. Or you could put pi times 8.5 squared. But you've got to have that square in the correct place and only square 8.5. Okay, put that in a calculator. It should give you something around this, 227.0. I don't know if you can hear that through this video. I guess I'll find out eventually. But this will be your answer. Just put that sucker in the calculator and you're done. Now, area equals radius squared times pi. Now let's do one more and we'll be done. And those will be done in about 15 minutes. Okay. Last one is one where we have this will be number 34 on today's assignment, which if you hear that, you're like, 34! Yes, there are 35 problems. I did it in like 2 minutes. Because once you know how to do it, super easy. Just punching buttons on a calculator. Anyway, area equals radius squared times pi. Is that a radius? No, it's a diameter. Well, how do you find the radius when you have a diameter? Now, if you have a radius, blah, blah, blah. 2 times the radius equals diameter. Therefore, the radius equals diameter divided by 2. Notice how I solved a literal equation to get that? Literal equations, whoa, important. Okay. Diameter divided by 2 gives you radius. What's 34 divided by 2? 17. So we would do 17 squared times pi. 7. Oh, you know what's crazy? That was actually 14. I feel like a dope. I usually would just keep going with this and just finish it. I am 15 minutes in this video. I'm not redoing it. Here's what I'm going to do. Because this is number 34 from our work, erase what I did. Forget it. I'll warn you in class. Okay? It's 14 is the diameter. I miswrote it. I copied it down wrong because I was in 34, so I wrote 34 instead of a 14 by accident. The diameter is 14. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So we're going to do 7 squared times pi. And that's 153.9. Now usually I would just keep going. I would just punch it in a calculator. It takes like 2 seconds. But I want to make sure that you have the answer to this on your day's work, okay? So this is number 34. When you're finding area, radius squared times pi. If they give you only a diameter, you're going to need to divide that diameter by 2. That gives you the radius. Now you do radius squared times pi. Get an answer. You're done. This video is kind of long, but thanks for watching and have a nice day. A lot of information in this video. So that's why it's long.